Yeah, it's a new project that's going to start next year,
Yes.
and it's another European project, and the title is Petrifying Wealth, and it has a long subtitle that I never remember, which is something the shift to masonry in Southern Europe from mid 11th to the end of 13th century.
Yes.
As the production of collective identity, and it's it also comes from a question, which is or an evidence, which is so present that we don't even realize, is the fact that if you go through Iberia,
Absolutely.
In different moments in the Middle Ages, you can find completely different things. So if think about if you were a knight going with the King of Leon in the first half of 11th century from Leon to the frontier.
Yes.
Probably in the way to the south, you would probably find one of those big monasteries of the High Middle Ages, just like Sahagún.
Yes.
Some kind of Roman remains in walls, and in obviously the aqueduct of Segovia. You will find the aqueduct of Segovia, and houses, buildings, different kind of buildings, but in good or other non-durable materials.
Okay.
And doing the same itinerary 100 or 150 years later, everything will be mushroomed with buildings.
Really?
And stone and durable materials. I mean, break in the places where there is no stone, not only stone. Stone is the most,
So there's a change. There's a
big
change in approach.
change. And this is a change which is obviously the Romanico in terms of art history. But this is not only related to big buildings with very artistical characteristics, and this idea of the new church and the new buildings that we all know, and they're fascinated. That fascinates people whenever they go to Europe. But the thing is that this is something that has a chronology and has to be somehow a social explanation, because we are so used to see that we don't even question.
No, it's so
and this
embedded,
is this is
right?
the European landscape, and this is the European identity somehow. The idea that there is this, strong history and very deep history of building on the Middle Ages, and you can just which should somehow identify the Middle Ages. We
Sure.
will probably think on a Gothic cathedral or in a monastery on the Central Middle Ages. But this is something that it was not like that
Beforehand.
before.
Well, and this is intriguing. I know you're right at the beginning of the project, and then now you will make this journey over the next 5 years. I mean, what are your kind of suspicions about what changed, or what were these communities responding to that said, we should make this out of rock, we should make this out of stone?
Yeah, there is something that, there are a lot of explanations that people know, which are one of the economic growth.
Sure.
All these Central Middle Ages from 11th to 13th century are the big economic growth of the period. But this is the context. This is not the explanation.
No, just because you can do it doesn't explain why they did it.
Yeah, so we have somehow explained that with the economic conditions, but it is not exactly like that. On the other hand, there is the Gregorian reform. All the change in the church and the territorialization of the church.
Yes.
That has created this new landscape of buildings everywhere, and those small churches related to communities. And again, the Gregorian reform is also a context.
Yes.
But this is not the only explanation. So we have somehow to make things more complex, to understand that structural relationship in these centuries in the Middle Ages between wealth,
Yes.
a collective identity,
Yes.
and the building in durable materials. So these are the three elements we have to put in relationship. And probably in those three, the questions related to a collective identity is the new one, in terms why communities need to relate themselves and are related and are gathered around these new buildings that are built from the very beginning to have a life, a long life, because they're really impressive. If you go to Segovia, for instance, and Segovia is
Stunning.
somehow the starting point of this project, because it's just go into a place and begin to think otherwise. I mean, here in Madrid, we go very often to Segovia. It's very close, and you go there and you see all those churches, and you see
the castle,
and it looks normal. But when you realize that the 24 churches in Segovia, intramuros, so inside the
walls,
are from 70 years, from
wow.
1180s to the mid 13th century.
Explosive growth.
Yeah, and they are very well done. I mean, the work, the quality of the work is amazing. They are very similar in terms of structure, with all that porticos and with all the elements that makes you think about community. I mean, they had that porticos because they were the places where the assemblies were. I mean, where people gather. So if you begin to think about, well, this is something we are used to. When you go to Segovia, there are a lot of churches, and everybody goes there and are very impressed by the quality, etc. But why? I mean, from mid-12th century to mid-13th century, there is such an amazing explosion of building.
And now that they are communicating through these structures, this is who we are as a community. That we want porticos, we want these types of religious structures. So what kinds of, I mean, maybe just kind of in closing, because I think that often students and many people don't understand like how historians can kind of come up with these ideas in terms of how do you figure out then what were they thinking, what kinds of sources, what kinds of materials will you turn to kind of start to interpret or at least try to understand what was the mentality of the community?
Well, we are going to work with very different kind of sources. We are going to work with all the sources that we could find. First of all, we are going to work with all what archaeologists have done in terms of archaeologists of the architecture, so those people that really understand the buildings. So they have, because we need to fix chronologies. So there are a lot of people working on that in the last 20 years. It has been really enormous quantity of databases, and this project is for Iberia and Italy, and also southern France. And we have the team in Italy. They have built this amazing Forma Urbis Roma Medieval, which they have just elaborated GIS with all the medieval remains in Rome, and they are working in other areas in Italy, and this is what we have to do here. And but we are not archaeologists. We are not doing that because it would be not 5 years, but 30 years. And then we are going to work with all the data available coming from archaeologists, databases, etc. There are amazing publications here in Spain. There is this Enciclopedia del Románico, which is a massive work and very, very well done on the different regions in Spain. And for instance, for Segovia, you have 3 volumes with 400 entries on Segovia. Big churches, small churches, just tiny remains of things. So we will try to collaborate with other people and try to get the data to have an enormous database that can help us with the GIS to map all that in terms of extensive, but also in terms of intensive. Areas where this massive building was specifically important. So once we're going to, this is the main point, but we are also going to work with documents
Yes.
and with literature and with law. So we are going to work with all written sources.
Well,
Wills, for instance.
Well, that's what I was thinking of. I think of these wills or foundations
Yeah.
and religious structures. It tells you a lot about the individual families that are
Yeah.
involved, who's granting money, where the funds coming from, and what kind of
Yeah. So these are going to be all the sources. These are going to be the more historian part of the
Yeah.
research. But to do that research, we need to gather all the data before. But because we need to understand
Yes.
the chronology and understand the different areas where this massive building has been produced at the moment, and and after that we will go to the written sources. Obviously, we are going to work with iconography too.
Yes.
So we have also art historians in the team that will somehow manage with all that Romanico part of the project.
Well, this is exciting because it's very much so a meta project.
Yeah.
That we're integrating all these different disciplines to understand a larger question, which is why?
Yeah.
Why have they chosen to do this, and what are they communicating to us? 500 years, 600, 700 years later, now we can kind of sit back and see what were they really saying.
Yeah, I hope.
Well, that's why we do these things.
I hope.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Anna.
Oh, thank you. It has been a pleasure.